He's shouting at me like I'm a slave. Put your back into it, man. This is not how I imagined meeting my hero. I used to like him. His show was my informational lifeblood. I couldn't consume the news unless it was delivered to me through his comic lens. Now he was shoveling dirt next to me in the thick and sweaty Mexican night. A flashlight carelessly placed on the hood of my car, pointing its light on our slowly deepening hole. Seriously, we need to hurry. Mexico has authorities, and they don't smile on shit like this. 6 hours earlier, I was just your average Uber driver in Georgetown, Texas. It's a small town, about an hour north of Austin, right up I-35. Suburban to rural, with the town square and an old-timey ice cream parlor where you don't find tourists, but actual old people. I like it. It's my speed. And I don't need to speak Spanish to live there. I don't even know where to start with this whole Spanish thing. I mean, I took French in high school. Pretty sure I failed it, though. I don't remember much about high school, come to think of it. Maybe it was German that I failed? Regardless, it wasn't Spanish. And it wasn't just Uber that I did for a living. Weird to put it in the past like that, but I guess that's the short of it. Before this evening, most of my time was spent working in a pet shop. We actually sold people animals that had no skills, which is weird since useless animals are all over the place all the time. And people can't kill enough possums while they're on their way to the store to buy a dumb hamster. We're weirdos, we people. Weirdos digging holes in other people's countries. Digging holes in foreign countries with Jon Stewart of The Daily Show fame. Before I picked up John, I was just pulling out of my driveway while clocking into the Uber app. Immediate ride popped up, and it was an airport run. If you don't already know, the airport runs are the lifeblood of the ride-sharing community. None of us want to drive drunks home, but we're all down for an airport run. If they ever build a light rail that airport people are going to want to use, we're getting out of this Uber racket altogether. But I guess that's moot at this point. Won't be doing any airport runs anytime soon. Do they even have airports in Mexico? How do you say Uber in Mexican? I've never even been outside Texas before tonight. That fateful airport run began as an Uber pool. I hate Uber pools. They're just a scam to pay the driver less, where the rider is banking on no one else wanting to go to the airport at the same time. Cheap bastards. And the first fare that I picked up was an especially weird case, given how rich the guy is supposed to be. When his name first appeared on my screen, it didn't register, but when he entered the back seat, replacing a standard greeting with a demand that he was a very important person who needed to get to the airport to make a New Hampshire flight, I glimpsed at his unnaturally puffy orange skin. It was like whipped yams. It was buttery, slippery. His suit was impeccably pressed, and he had no luggage. Cool, man, we'll get you to the airport, no problem. But this is a pool, so there might be other riders. Wrong, he firmly said. I hired you. That means you work for me, and that means we go straight to the airport, straight to New Hampshire. This is big league. For the most part, we did not interact. He quietly pursed his lips and gazed out the window. His eyebrows were like a hairy storm cloud looming between us. It didn't take long for a second rider to pop up on the app. I could tell that the Donald was displeased when we pulled off the interstate and into an Olive Garden parking lot to see Jon Stewart waiting. And when John silently entered the back seat, staring intently into his eyes, Trump exclaimed, "Oh, this won't work. This is the worst mess. I'm going to ride up front with you." John said nothing initially. 10 minutes closer to the airport, and the ride had been nothing more than Trump pushing his seat back as far as he could while John whistled the chorus to Born in the USA over and over and over again. Out of self-pity, I was about to drive us straight into a tree when John suddenly stopped whistling to speak for the first time. "It's a shame you hate Mexico so much." To which Trump quickly retorted, "We're going to build that wall. It's going to be tremendous." And I thought that I would be funny by verbally adding, "It's going to be huge," to get them both to laugh. But before I could even get it out, There was razor wire around Trump's neck. Choking and gurgling sounds filled the cabin. The first of many dots of shooting blood stung my right eye. It's easy to say that I was shocked and I didn't know what to do, so I just kept driving and didn't intervene because I couldn't really process the situation. I wasn't even sure if it was real. Yeah, easy to say that, but it's impossible to actually describe how bizarre and disruptive it is. I was driving my car to the airport, and then suddenly a murder began, with no warning. They might as well have magically turned into unicorns with dicks instead of horns. That would have been easier for me to sort out. Anything with less blood and unbridled intimacy, really. And John was really putting his weight into it. He had his knee pressed against the rear of the seat, rowing his shoulders back in a rocking motion, which was clearly an intent to generate a sawing result, and it was working. Sure, Trump was grasping and clawed at the wire around his neck, which was odd considering the wire itself wasn't motoring the situation at all. It was like watching a man shoot at the bullets instead of the other man firing. I've never seen that much blood. I mean, people slaughter cows all the time, and those things look taut with the stuff. But the closest I ever came to seeing that much blood was when we hit a deer with our car on a family trip back in the 80s. My dad hit that thing so hard, one of the legs was just gone. Like it exploded down to its atomic elements or something. And the void where it used to be was just glooping intermittently like a garden hose on a half turn. But this situation was way different. This guy was spurting all over the place. And more importantly, all over me and every other surface on my car's interior. As John strained and pulled the murder cord further and further into the back seat, Trump was doing his best to move with it to lessen the effectiveness of the rocking saw method. Eventually, he was practically laying flat, having clearly broken my headrest, and he was desperately kicking at the dashboard. I just kept cruising along, casually taking the flyover to 183, blood starting to slicken the steering wheel underneath my palms, continuing to avoid dealing with the reality that was unfolding in my recently shampooed car. And that's when things got weird. All the kicking of the dashboard had knocked off one of Trump's penny loafers, and I could see that under his sock there was significant unnatural movement, as if he was somehow being inflated. Blood from his hyper-red face speckled my brow as I leaned forward to see what was going on with his foot. I felt high. I felt as if I had entered someone else's dream and was just playing an extra, like I was an accidental agent in someone else's drama. Then his other shoe popped off, and the sock underneath it immediately ripped open like a busted piñata, shredded flesh dangling about, and a massive blood-covered rat dropped out of his lower leg like fajita meat from a bag. The rat looked dazed and just lay on the floorboard breathing heavily as if it had just woken from a drugged slumber. With this incomprehensible new information in front of me, I took a moment to entertain the idea that it was me dreaming everything, that it was far too surreal to be true, and that the idea that the man who wanted to fly to New Hampshire was actually just a rat-powered Voltron-type creature being snuffed out by a beloved television personality, well, that seemed far more reasonable that it would be a dream. So I ignored the next two lethargic and blood-soaked rats that fell from his same exploded leg, as well as the medusa of bloody snakes that was now slopping out of the open neck, which used to connect to the severed head that had just bounced off of the armrest and onto my lap, where it began leaking smaller snakes onto my crotch. Noting my lack of forward visibility and slowly blinking with exceptional intensity, I turned on my windshield wipers to see if dream wipers could possibly wipe the interior of my car. They did not. But at least the blood shower had ceased, and now I had a snake vermin problem to contend with, as well as a murderous television host in the back seat who had apparently been yelling at me for the past 2 minutes. The yelling had just started to come into audible focus when one of the snakes emerging from the neck hole extended out and dug its fangs into the side of my head, to which I jerked the steering wheel sharply to the right, and as the car bounced off of a bit of guardrail, I shrieked, "Holy shit, that dream snake actually hurts!" Jon Stewart's patience had apparently worn thin, and he expressed his displeasure by punching my head where the snake had kissed it. "Wake the fuck up and drive. We have a dead body to dispose of here." He was so mad. My head seriously hurt, and the vividness of all my senses was causing me serious confusion. I just wanted to tap out. "But this is all like a dream, and you're just like a projection of my insecurities, and the rats and snakes are like what I feel about population, and people aren't just meat bags full of rats and snakes anyway." "You believe what you want, but you will need to start believing it in Spanish. Keep heading south on 183. We're taking this thing to Mexico." 6 hours later, and here we are, digging a hole for an expensive suit in what is ostensibly a trunk full of dead rats and snakes. John pops the trunk, looking down at the mess. "This one wasn't the real one, but I know I'm close." "Not the real one? Who the fuck is this guy?" "This is all I've been doing for the last year ever since I quit the show. The last one I tracked was full of burning oil. The one before that was packed with rabid AIDS babies. I expect the next one to just be full of miniature versions of me, but spewing Nazi rhetoric." I never expected meeting Jon Stewart to end with me in the Mexican desert, with fang holes in my face, wondering what the hell an AIDS baby is, or how it became rabid. "So, what the hell are these things? These Trumps?" I'm really expecting him to reply with something demonic, something biblical, something that will make my new life in Mexico make sense. John turns around to face me, knees slightly bent, and with a sudden jazz hands he exclaims, "The aristocrats."